So guys, introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Adam.
I'm Alex.
Alright, awesome guys. Great to have everyone on the podcast for once. Um, Now we were gonna talk about study habits today, right? Um, I was informed that you guys know what you're talking about here, so why don't you give us some insight?
So basically, I watched a few videos on how to study in college, and I got a few different perspectives.
Uh-huh.
Starting off, there's a YouTube channel called Cajun Koi Academy, and
Yeah,
his
okay.
perspective is basically he explains why taking notes didn't work for him, and he decided to actually start skipping class, but not in a bad way, because it gave him extra freedom to study what he calls self-studying on his own instead of studying based off um, whatever the style of teaching the professor uses.
Okay.
And basically, how he explains it is that in a college class, you're gonna have one professor, and you're gonna have 200 to 300 students, or even more. And each of the students has a different learning style, and in addition to that, the professor has a different teaching style. So it's
Uh-huh.
not always going to work out. And he also explains how his method of uh, learning and studying for college might not even work for anyone watching the video, but he still wants to share his ideas because they're not like as popular as ideas as like common studying habits.
Uh-huh.
And uh, yeah, so one of the methods he used is called the SQ triple R. Wait,
What does that mean?
and the SQ triple R stands for skim, question, rephrase, recall, and then repeat. And he uses this in medical school, and he says it's used to avoid the Dunning-Kruger effect because
Ooh.
normally in high school and middle school, I can personally relate to this, where uh, when you're studying notes that you took during class, you often just go over them, reread, and look at the concepts you've already learned. And what it does is when you after you're done studying, it makes you feel a lot smarter than you might actually be because you might not have gained actual new information. But the Dunning-Kruger effect says that you psychologically believe you've made an effort and you've benefited from it. And
Alright.
so what the SQ triple R does is, well, firstly, you skim over the content before even taking any notes, and after you've seen the general gist of what's going on, you give yourself a lot of questions, and even if they might be simple questions, it helps you start thinking and going through the process of learning. And then the next phase is to rephrase what you've learned after you've. So what he's done is he's gone through the lectures that the professors have provided, and he tries to create note cards that summarize what he learned, but in a different way. So it allows him to like take new perspectives and accumulate new information. And after that is recall. Kind of speaks for itself. He basically just um, trying to remember what he learned previously and answer those questions that he made. And then finally, it's repetition, which is what everyone does, but they do it without the previous steps. So after you've repeated the process, you get to, well, gain more knowledge and become more prepared for your exams.
Yeah, I got a question. I got a question about this. So I know you're talking about
Yeah,
the Dunning-Kruger effect, from the way we study normally, right? Is that what you said?
yeah,
So, what I think is kind of like the inverse of the Dunning-Kruger effect is imposter syndrome, you know? So,
Can you
do you
explain that?
imposter syndrome? It's like basically you think you're underqualified for something that you are definitely qualified. Basically, you think little of yourself. I think that was the
I
basic gist
see.
of what it was, right? So I kind of think that's like the inverse or something. So do you think that his version of studying can give you the imposter effect and lead to obsessive studying?
Uh, no, I don't think so because, well, from his personal experience, after using his method of studying, he said he spent a lot less time taking notes. But even though he spent a lot of less time taking those notes, he was a lot more productive. So he was being as efficient as he could and being able to accumulate the knowledge he did in a more compacted time period.
Uh-huh.
I
I
think
see.
I think some of this is applicable to our learning in school, but I think there are some major issues with this. Mostly the fact that we don't really have teachers don't really have a consistent way of giving us their notes, and in some cases won't even give us notes at all online for us to access outside of school. So we're kind of forced into the idea of having to write down everything we see. Otherwise, we will be losing information. So how do you think this can be adapted when?
Well, I would respectfully disagree with that because I think I said this in the beginning. He's in college, so as of high school, this method might not work as well. But I
Yeah,
do believe
but we're in high
most
school, right?
colleges are more.
We want to be able to adapt this to help ourselves now, right? To help us with our current studying. So how can this be applied to like high school? Because otherwise, it's not really applicable to many of us in this point in our lives.
Well, I think so. The main issue with high school is that the teachers aren't giving their notes out online. So I think a better way to encourage them is to use, like, for example, office hours or what we call at our school flex time. And I think that would be a great way to get personal one-on-one kind of tutoring
Yeah,
and be
but
able to, yeah.
No, I think it's just
at that point, you're still going in person and still taking the notes. So it'd be the same as just going to a lecture.
I think
Well, no,
it's
you're not taking notes during that time. You'd be
Like,
asking for the notes to be posted on the digital
yeah,
link.
but in the
but some
end you're
teachers
just going to be
have a no
taking
notes
notes.
policy. Yeah,
I think there are some problematic assumptions being made about this guy's study techniques, but let's just accept it
I
at the
mean,
surface level, I
I
guess.
mean, I guess, I mean,
Yep.
the point is not that you don't have to write anything down, but the point is that you're not spending like
well,
so
this is
much
not.
time repeating what you
Wait,
learned
but I
because
want to know
It's
that
impossible for
how
like
does he
this.
get the information to study? Like, how does he know what to study? Is this like,
he said he uses digital lectures. So he's taking notes, but he's not
okay,
taking
so,
as many because when if you go to class and you learn and you take notes, and then when you study, you're basically repeating the time you spent in class. But instead of, so let's say you spend X time in class, and then when you have to study, you're adding another X time, so you get 2X. But his method makes it so you only take X time
yeah, but don't
because
they
you're
say that
But
to
that repetition
solidify,
is
yeah, solidifies your learning? Like, like something about long-term memory, something, something.
like
no.
realistically,
I've seen
realistically, right? If he takes those
multiple
notes,
studies have said that, like, specifically repeating a study like of what notes he
Wait,
really
but
took
a
is like
part of
detrimental.
his study technique is literally repetition. It's the final R, right?
yeah. So
Yeah.
like he can take. Like, it'd be faster to just take his notes in class,
Yeah,
unless
I think he just doesn't
well,
want to wake up, honestly. I think that's what's going on.
wait, someone, are you recording?
Yeah, I am.
All right, we can cut this part out. Anyways, I'll start a new section now. All right.
No,
So
this is fine. Like, legitimately, it's fine.
all right, whatever. We can cut it out though. But something I looked at was preparing for exams specifically, knowing that our IB exams are coming up soon. And something I looked at was like a red, yellow, green like stoplight type of way of marking subjects basically. So if you divide a course, let's say into a selection of topics, right? And you can go over what dates you learn different parts of that topic. So for example, right now we're learning probability, right? And so for different parts of probability, I'll mark that with a date, which I can then go to the teacher's calendar and review those example problems. And what they said was, a good way of like keeping track of what you don't know, what you need to learn, is maybe marking things with a color. Red being like, I desperately need to study this, I don't understand it, and green being that you have full knowledge of it, and if you were to get tested, then you would not make any mistakes, and yellow being kind of in between. And so I think this would be very helpful with IB exams, right? If you went back in the syllabus, went back in modules, and kind of took notes of what topics you did, and then different aspects of those topics. I guess when you're reviewing, you wouldn't really be doing it by date, but because you've already gone through the topic, you'd know what the different parts are, and maybe organizing it like this so you can tackle things based on what you don't know in order to maximize your study time.
Yeah, let me rephrase. I rewatched a portion of the video. So what he actually meant was, what he does is when he creates the flashcards and he did the studying, what he did was he only repeated the harder topics that he struggled more on, and he didn't repeat the easier topics. And this was also apparent in a different video by Ali Abdal, and his studying tips where he does take notes. So both people use this. I mean, yeah, it's repetition, but it's specified repetition where you find the topics and the specific problems that you might be struggling with, and you repeat those concepts, but you take the topics that you've already are knowledgeable about, and you put the.
Yeah, I think that can be adapted to our high school education as well, just because the fact is you have to take the notes the first time around, and after that you can do a more specific repetition and of the knowledge that you don't know and what you need to cover more specifically. And so I think in our case, we'd have to take those notes at school just because we don't always have access to all the resources online. In some classes we do, and it's possible to do that, but in some we don't. And so I think in that way, we can still take our notes at school, but then apply this idea of more specific studying and not just going over the entire syllabus or the entire topic, right? But only specializing on what we need in order to save time for other things, and also just have a more productive study session with different like goals in mind for each topic.
Yeah, but I was just wondering, is this like similar to the thing that Quizlet does when you get things wrong, it marks them as needs improvement? So maybe using Quizlet is quite a very awesome way to be reviewing your material. As long as, also, if when you write things down, it also puts it into your brain more. So,
well, I think there are a few issues with that. First of all, like Quizlet is now primarily paid unless you're doing flashcards, right? And you can still mark things, but for the most part, it's like a paid platform if you want to use the learn function.
Well, what do you mean the learn?
Well,
the learn
I think
function works fine if you're just trying to like put things into your brain. They're flashcards.
You can't use it anymore. It's paid. Like the actual like learning function, the flashcards work, but the actual like learn function, which
you mean the
forces
thing
you to,
where
like,
it just
type things
repeated
out,
flashcards in front of your face until you figured it out? They locked that feature?
No, the feature, there's a learn function on Quizlet where essentially it makes you not just like click on the flashcards, right? But you also have to, for example, give you one side and you have to type out the other, or multiple choice or something like that, and you can keep going until you've learned all the material. I think the idea of like typing it out, I think, is more effective than just flipping through flashcards.
Oh yeah, the learn feature was definitely pretty awesome for that, but I guess if you're right, if you're saying that it is paid, that's unfortunate. But
yeah, I think there's an alternative. You can use Anki flashcards, which have a bit more customization, but also have a learning curve to them, which can be more useful than Quizlet, but that's only if like you actually take the time to learn how the system works. And I've seen a lot of YouTubers, as Adam mentioned earlier, Ali Abdal is a big one who advocates for programs like Anki, which help them through medical school.
Yeah, I do think Quizlet has become pretty limited, especially we've used it in our computer science HL class, but I don't find it very effective we use it for defining computer-related definitions and stuff like that. So, like when I study for a quiz or a test we have, I often don't even use the Quizlet that I made that are required for homework, but instead I use my own studying, and also I just go through the Canvas modules and stuff.
Yeah. But I guess in a way that's reviewing the whole syllabus and we look at the entire presentation. But
Yeah, pretty ineffective.
yeah. Well, I guess that's a pretty fascinating way to learn. Um,
But I think there's also other things we can incorporate into studying, because there's also there's a lot of people who say exercising or having extra sleep or using specific time frames to take breaks is also helpful for refreshing your mind and becoming more open-minded.
Yeah, something interesting I saw recently was actually someone got into Harvard this year, and they went over a bit of their schedule, and I think this is a little bit impractical for maybe like a Skyline IB student, just because the amount of work is too much to fit this type of schedule. But um, he juggles a few things at once, and for example, he does his homework in 2 hours, which I think is a little impractical for us. But he does make sure to do other activities like sports and also like live streaming on the side, which I think, and he's able to do this at and still keep a high level of proficiency in like what he's learning at school. So I think what really matters is your approach to studying, because he's able to do this all in 2 hours. And I think something that really surprised me was the fact that he would get up at 6, right? He'd go to bed at 1, get up at 6, something like this. So I think
wait,
I think like doing the activities like sports and also things you enjoy is able to.
you're telling me he gets 5 hours of sleep every day?
Yes, sir.
I don't think someone can live on 5 hours of sleep a day.
Well, I think
I don't think
I
he's
don't
being
know.
real with you. I don't think he's
I
being
mean,
real.
it might depend on day, right? Also, you have weekends, but
But come on, 5 hours a
I
day across 5 days.
he has his entire day schedule set out.
yeah. I mean,
Seems very organized.
That's
yeah.
very impressive, but you know, I have my doubts, but that's another story.
Was it 5? I don't know. If it might have been 6. Maybe like 6:40, something like that.
That's still, like,
That
how
is
many REM
still.
cycles even is that? Like,
I mean, do you want average sleep more than that?
yeah, I take
Oh
naps
wait.
in the middle of the day.
Oh, you take naps?
Yes, I come to school with 5 hours of sleep, but I'm gonna take more naps in the day, except for today, because I have to do this instead.
I don't like taking naps. I feel like
Yeah, you feel like a failure, but like, come on, it's just something I have to do. You know, better to have
it
some
feels
sleep,
like
get some work done.
unpredictable when you
Then that
for
means you have
me,
to
because
set an alarm.
I
Well,
know I sometimes my alarm doesn't work, or I
I mean,
sleep
yeah.
past it anyways.
But usually naps are not too hard to wake up from. But I was watching a TED talk where they discussed that like napping for some people may work, but for others, like it can make them feel worse, which I think I've experienced a lot. Like last year,
Yeah, I think that's something I would experience.
I'd wake up feeling sick rather than actually refreshed, and so it'd make it really hard to be productive.
That's, oh, I guess it is different among people then. So I was
Aren't you?
talking with a friend, and he was telling me about how we waste all of our time every day because we got so many hours in a day, yet we only spend some of it like doing productive work, whereas we spend the rest of it, the majority of it, doing nothing, gaming, or I don't know, like things that just, I don't know. There was a thing he said, something like about like what you get out of each day. Like if you play games all day, there's this kind of like emptiness you feel at the end. You feel like, what did I just do with my day? I didn't really
But yeah,
accomplish anything.
there's an analogy where if you think of time as money, then you have a certain amount of money every day, and if you don't work and you don't produce anything out of the day, then that money resets and It's gone.
Yeah.
That's gonna be it for this podcast. My final advice to incoming students is to pick your own methods and try to benefit the most from the habits that you've already developed from previous schooling.